So I should have some trailer sound. What is up, everybody? This is Anthony with VR365. What is going on? It is Friday, Black Friday, in fact. Yes, one day a year, man. One day a year. And trip on this. I have not seen the inside of any retail establishments. I have waited in no lines and have no interest whatsoever. But it's funny, I used to be a Black Friday guy. But we'll talk about that in just a second here. But we've got a pair of special guests today. We've got the virtual strangers in the building. In fact, they wore matching shirts. We've got Wes. We've got Wes and Ruuts. What is up? Let's start off with Wes first. Wes, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing really good. Oh, also to everyone in chat, we don't know if our volumes are set right. So if you think we need to turn somebody up or something, go ahead and let us know. But yeah, I'm kind of, hopefully we'll have things dialed in here. Ruuts, how are you doing, man? Black Friday.
I'm doing good, but I'm a little horrified that Wes and I are wearing the same thing. I always try to switch it up, you know.
You guys both got Ryzens, right? You got Ryzens, you got Radeon graphics cards. Team Red, man. Oh, shit. 49ers in Kentucky. What is up with that?
I just thought I should represent since I was coming on your West Coast VR show here. I should represent.
That's not your real team, though?
Oh, it's totally my team. I know it happens to not be yours. That's the reason why I put it on.
Yeah. No, I'm a Seahawks guy, but it's weird. I hardly get to watch football anymore, so it's like I don't even really know what's going on anymore. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this episode. Let me go ahead and turn down this trailer here because it's probably really loud in people's ears. So VR Spry Guy says the volume sounds good. JP says sounds okay to me. The VR Mang has to bounce. The Irishman is waiting. Are you talking about like Notre Dame football, or are you talking about the movie The Irishman, which I believe is on Netflix? Which, this is off topic for a quick second. I saw like 5 minutes of that movie. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, The Irishman thing, you know. It's like Martin Scorsese, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro. But it's so weird because they digitally take their faces and put them on these other bodies, and it's so effing wrong. This has got to stop. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I actually I haven't seen any footage of it, but I've watched a lot of interviews and things. I heard about it. I was wondering how it would turn out. I guess not so great, huh?
Yeah, I mean, anytime I've seen, like, you know, on the Star Wars movies where they like create a digital character or something, we're not there yet, man. We are not there yet, because to me it looks so ridiculously corny, and we got to get to a point where like I wouldn't notice it, but I notice it immediately. You know, we're not there, but I guess some people like, oh, it's perfectly fine. I'm totally entertained by this. But,
I guess so, man. No, I'm looking forward to seeing that, you know, because every other movie those guys have done has just been completely awesome. But yeah, I'm certainly interested to see how that CGI deal turned out.
yeah, I was watching it, and after a while, you just forget about it, and you get caught up in their performance, and then you forget about it. But it is a little bit weird. Roots, going back to you really quick. We'll talk a little bit about maybe some Black Friday deals later in the show, but just really quickly on Black Friday, were you ever the guy to be in a tent in front of Best Buy? Have you ever been in a tent on Black Friday night in front of a store? Because I actually have. I can tell stories about it.
I've never waited for something overnight. I've got there like hours before, and I've dealt with the mad rush, the waiting in lines. I'm like you. You couldn't pay me enough to go close to those stores, but they've kind of set it up to where you don't need to, right? Like everything you can get. I got what I wanted a week before, and I even got a wheel today, so I can actually do proper VR racing on Monday. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they have these deals that are like only for 6 hours, like the doorbusters, right? So, like, if you want that key TV, that, $1,200 TV, and it's a great deal because it's like normally $1,900, you got to be in a sleeping bag. Yeah, and some people are there multiple days ahead of time. You know what? I was actually thinking to myself, no, I have not been in a tent on Black Friday, but I've been in a tent. I was in a tent when the PlayStation 2 came out in front of a Target, and it was in a horrible storm for Sacramento, the storms that we have, which is basically just rain and wind pretty much, right? But it was rainy, windy as hell, and this was like late October in the year 2000. The year 2000, 19 years ago. More than 19 years ago. That's amazing. But I spent the night for a PlayStation 2. I remember I got my PlayStation 2. I got Madden, I got SSX, and I got Scavenger Run or whatever. The Scavenger Run game. There was like 3 games I got. Dude, that was the PlayStation 2 sucked at launch. It was terrible. There was no reason to wait in that damn line.
Did they run out? Were they low or something? Or did you get a special sale on it? Or
no, could, if you didn't get one that night, forget about it. You were paying thousands on eBay, or you weren't going to get one for like 7 months. It was literally 7 months before you could walk into a store and buy one. So from that standpoint, actually it was great that I got it just from a FOMO standpoint, fear of missing out kind of a deal. But it was one of the worst. The PlayStation 2, the first year of PlayStation 2, garbage. You would have been perfectly fine with a Sega Dreamcast. You would have had no need for a PlayStation 2 that first year. But let's go ahead and get into some VR gaming discussion, because we do have 2 VR pundits in the building. So it's really cool to have some VR guys that discuss this all the time. By the way, actually, really quick before we get into this, the show Virtual Strangers, you guys should be subscribed to this show. And I know that every single person that is subscribed to my channel is not subscribed to Virtual Strangers yet. And you're missing out on high quality content, especially if you commute ever. Like if you ever have to drive a long distance, or in your job, if you're able to like work and listen to podcasts in your job, Virtual Strangers, I got to admit, a lot of times I'm listening to Virtual Strangers more than I'm watching it. I do it in my cubicle. I listen to F Reality on Monday. I save F Reality. I save Virtual Strangers. I save Coffee and VR. And I'm able to listen to them as podcasts. And I'm telling you, Ruuts and Wes, you guys have improved by leaps and bounds over I don't know how many months it's been. You keep banging out these shows. You got the Monday show. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience really quick, like what you guys do over there on Virtual Strangers, what you're all about?
Well, first of all, I would be blushing right now, but I kind of feel like you just said we were really ugly. Like we're great to listen to, but not very easy on the eyes. No, I'm just messing with you.
You've got a face for radio. That's what they say. That's what they used to say back in the days, right?
Right. But no, you know the deal. We talk VR. The same thing we did in your chat and in your Discord forever. We just do in front of a camera now. All the latest news, reviews, all things VR software. We don't go very deep on hardware very often, but when it comes to games, we got talk for days, and that's pretty much what we do.
Yeah, Ruuts, anything to say about that?
Oh yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is our secret is we like actually enjoy talking to each other, and like we'll go to record and we'll talk for an hour before we even record, and we'll keep stopping and restarting, and so by the time we do record, it's just like we're having the same conversation we've been having all the time, and I think that translates. I don't know, I enjoy filming every time we do it, so it's awesome.
Yeah.
Whenever
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, whenever we record, we normally have more time and more footage that isn't part of the show than we do that actually is the show. And we actually kind of considered producing this for our like Discord people or whatever this show before the show video, because we talk and we say a
The
lot more off
R-rated one.
camera. Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, that'd be sweet. See, the reason you guys are here right now is because I was listening to you guys like this last week, and you guys were talking about all these topics, and oh man, I wanted to jump through the internet and get into the conversation. You know, I'm watching a show that already happened, but it's like, oh, I want to argue this. I want to argue something that Ruuts just said or something Wes said, and I'm like, man, I got to get these guys on the show because it'd be a fun little thing to argue some of these ideas. And so, yeah, I'm really enjoying what you guys have been doing lately. So, yeah, definitely wanted to pump that up a little bit. But let's go ahead and get started because we actually have some juicy stuff this week. There's some good things going on. I mean, there's so many freaking games, so many release dates. It is ridiculous how much stuff is going on out there. But one of the biggest stories that is going on in the VR gaming industry, of course, is Facebook has now acquired Beat Games, and of course, along with that, they acquire the Beat Saber franchise, and they own it lock, stock, and barrel. So this announcement came out, and it kind of sent a bit of some shockwaves through the gaming community, because we're like wondering, oh, what is this? Like, if you're a PlayStation VR guy and you hear freaking Oculus just bought Beat Saber, you know, or you got a Vive or something, you're wondering, is this the end of Beat Saber? You know, is Beat Saber 2 only going to be on the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Rift? What's going to happen here? But if you actually read into the story, according to Facebook, according to Oculus, their plan is kind of to be a bit hands-off, and they plan on letting the franchise continue on all these various platforms, and they didn't make any remarks about exclusivity or having special versions, maybe that only for the Quest and only for the Rift. There's a whole bunch of angles we can look at this from, but I want to start off with just purely from an investment standpoint. Ruuts, we'll start off with you here. Did they grossly overpay for this company, Beat Games? Do you believe that Beat Games, which formerly they were known as Hyperbolic Magnetism, it's basically two dudes for the most part. There's two dudes, and then there's like a music guy as well that I think's part of it, but basically two programmer guys. Did Facebook way overpay for these guys, or are these guys really as talent? Like, are these the next Beatles? Like, or did they get Milli Vanilli? What's going on here?
I don't know. So what did they pay for? That's my question. I didn't hear what the actual amount was.
Yeah, we're not going to know that information. That's not going to be divulged. I don't know if it'll ever like come out in like a stock or like a report to investors or anything, but we're just going to have to guesstimate on that, I guess.
They better do something with it. I don't know. For me, it's weird. It's like, what's the point of it, right? Like, I just don't see that there's a benefit. My biggest thing is I'm hoping they're actually going to make like a sequel. We'll use some Oculus money, and that will actually, or the Oculus money, and that'll make a better game. But I just don't see the point of it. I'm hoping they didn't put too much money out for it.
Well, one of the things Michael Verdu, so Michael Verdu is the new guy. Like, he basically took over Jason Rubin's position. I don't understand how all that works. But anyway, Michael Verdu is the guy. He made the call on this, apparently, or whatever. And he had a statement about it. And one of the things that he said is, he basically said, look, we're buying Beat Games not because we want to, like, steal them away from everybody, but we want to give them so much more resources. We want to give them extra people. We want to basically what he's saying here is these are the first true stars of VR, and we want to give them everything that they possibly need to do everything that they want to do. And yeah, we're going to own them, but it's still going to come to every platform. Wes, what do you think about this? Do you think Oculus ultimately, are they going to get their money out of this investment? I mean, we don't know what it is, but we got to assume it's a lot of money, okay? We got to assume these guys are balling out of control at this point in Prague or wherever they are. Is Oculus going to get their money out of this? Are they going to, is this going to work for them?
Yeah, immediately that's where your thought process goes. Is this a monetary investment, or is this an investment in the platform? Kind of like taking a loss on the Quest or something of this nature. There's certain things that Oculus and Valve as well, certain things that they're doing uh, to take to make an investment in growing the platform. And if you are to take Verdue at his word, it kind of sounds like that's what they're doing. Now, I'm not so sure I buy that. I think maybe that there probably is going to be some sort of exclusive DLC, or maybe some kind of timed exclusive on the sequel. Only time's going to tell on that. But I totally expected this, but not from Facebook. I expected this to happen. I expected Sony to pick up Beat Saber because it makes so much more sense. They have this giant catalog of artists and music, because they're not just a games company, they're this big media conglomerate, and they have a lot of music that they could throw at Beat Saber, so that we're not stuck with just Imagine Dragons and all these other, artists, many of which we haven't heard of. So I've been waiting on Sony to do this for quite some time. And that was the biggest shocker for me, that it actually was Facebook, because I really don't see a whole lot of upside for Oculus from acquiring something as one dimensional as a rhythm game.
Yeah, so I'll give you my take real quick, and we'll go back to Roots. But so my theory on this whole thing, first of all, see, I love Beat Saber. Like, I really enjoy Beat Saber. I remember when I first got it, I'm the guy that freaking cried the first time I played it. I talked about it, right? And it is magical. The first time I was playing it, I was playing that song Escape, and it was just the music and the gameplay. Everything just came together, and it was like, I felt like an electricity shooting up along my arms, like freaking whatever, one of those weird situations, right? When you see an athlete that does some incredible performance, and you get like a tingly, or like some singer just freaking sings their ass off or whatever, and you get like a tingly sensation. And I got that the first time I played Beat Saber, and it was magical. I really loved it. Having said that, I believe, see, here's the thing. It's like other games have come. Audica has come, right? You've got Synth Riders, you've got like Pistol Whip, and there's a lot of other beat games. There's a lot of other rhythm type games out there. And the question is, see, I kind of feel like Beat Saber is an incredible game, but it was more of the right game at the right time. It was a perfect storm. These are great developers. They're great developers. But I actually tweeted out this week. No one really got the tweet, but I tweeted, do you ever remember when the Oakland Raiders would always pay a gigantic contract to whoever the Super Bowl MVP was, whether the guy was a good player or not? They'd give him a freaking 10-year, $30 million deal just because he was a Super Bowl MVP, right? And it's like trying to chase that former success. And I'm not saying that, like, that would be a straight diss if I was saying that that's what Oculus is doing here. Oculus is Al Davis, and they're trying to chase that Beat Saber success, and they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice. It's not going to happen. I'm not really saying that, because these are talented developers, and they are going to have a Beat Saber 2 that's probably going to be badass. They're probably going to have other games, but I just wonder, are they, like, I'm kind of thinking they probably paid way too much for this, and they're not going to focus it just on Quest and Rift and like really piss people off by not allowing the game to work anywhere else, making the controls so super specific that on other controllers, even if you hack a version somehow, or they could get really asshole with it. They're not going to do that, but they are going to market the shit out of this thing. Like, one thing I was thinking, it's very last minute here, but it's November 29th. Could they send out stickers to Best Buys and Walmarts all around the country? Beat Saber, a big Beat Saber sticker, and a last second commercial that starts hitting airwaves a week from now. Buy an Oculus Quest or a Rift S, get Beat Saber, limited time. They're already doing the Vader Immortal and all of that. But anyway, Roots, back to you real quick. Any last thoughts about this whole Beat Saber thing and Oculus?
I think what Wes said is maybe Oculus was beating Sony to the punch, maybe just owning it so Sony can't own it, so they can't do exactly what Wes was saying. Maybe they, I know, Wes, you've talked about that on the show. Maybe they saw our show and they wanted to put a kibosh real quick, but but yeah, so that, I think it could be good, and maybe they do something good with it. I don't think they'll make it exclusive, but maybe PlayStation might have, at some point. I don't know. So
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's an interesting topic, and it's maybe even more interesting than this is, what does this mean going forward? Like, I didn't even consider this idea that there's a war going on, and like Sony just came in and snagged Insomniac, and so maybe Oculus was like, yeah, there's, it's on now. We got to grab developers. Sony might grab developers. This might be a full-on war here, because we're thinking 7 years from now. And it could be all Sony and all Oculus 7 years from now, because there's another company, a green company. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, is there a war going on? I mean, I didn't consider that angle. But Wes, I wanted to ask you another question about this. So now that Facebook and Oculus might be in this situation where they're going to start looking at actual developers and building a possible stable under that Oculus umbrella, it's Black Friday, man, and Black Friday is all about steals and deals. So like, what developer out there, we know, like, we're hardcore gamers, right? We're hardcore VR gamers. We know some talented developers that are probably flying way the hell under the radar. Who should Facebook and Oculus, who should they target next time?
Yeah, there's actually, the further we get in to the further along we get, more and more of these smaller developers pop up and really surprise us with the quality of the work that they're doing. And I think what you're asking me here are which ones are flying under the radar. Everybody knows that, Survios, Vertigo Games, these guys, they have their hands all over everything, and they're very talented. But there's tons of these smaller developers, guys like Archiact, guys like Fast Travel Games, that would be great pickups for anybody who's trying to build a stable of VR developers. Archiact, of course, known for Evasion, and then they came out last year with this Freediver, which is a smaller experience, but it was absolutely phenomenal, a great, fun game. And Fast Travel Games, the guys who brought us Apex Construct, and just came out with Curious Tale, The Stolen Pets. Obviously, those guys are very talented because they were called in by Neat Corporation to help with development of Budget Cuts 2. I feel like they are really an emerging studio in VR, and there's so many others. But if I had to think of two quickly off the top of my head, those are the first two that come to mind.
Yeah, those are absolutely great choices. And, I have a trailer running right now. This is Carnage Chronicles, which I believe is one of the best dungeon crawlers we've seen so far. It's just such a nice, polished experience that has been continually improved upon. But this is a studio, Nordic Trolls, like way under the radar. See, here's the thing. I don't think Oculus should be going after all the big names and paying these huge amounts of money. I think they should find the hidden gems and then give these people a handful of extra developers. Give these people a couple of technicians that know the platform inside and out. Give them a little bit extra development money, extra resources, etc. Ruuts, what about you? In chat, we've had a couple of suggestions. Somebody said Alchemy Labs, but they were, of course, already acquired by Google. And someone said the people that made Invisible Hours, Tequila Works, the developers of Groundhog Day VR. There's all kinds of little developers out there. Is there any particular little developers that you think would be a sensational acquisition?
Well, I think the creators of Moss, Polyarch, would be good. And then what is Super Hot? Like, I would love to see a Super Hot sequel. And I can't imagine that you could probably scoop them up fairly cheap comparatively, right? Maybe make a sequel or bring some other genre into it, So
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of talented developers that are floating around out there. Somebody like Master Indie, that created Jet Island. I mean there's just a lot of even Stonepunk Studios. I don't want him to get acquired. I mean it would be great for Jay if he got a boatload of money, but I don't want him to be locked down to, although maybe you get more people helping out. They're making even more games. I mean, it could be a net positive regardless. And then there's got to be some people in chat, or maybe people that are watching this video right now, that Facebook is an evil empire. We don't want any more of these things. This is a bad idea. This is a bad move. But this is, as VR gets bigger, this is kind of what we're looking at, right? I mean, studios are going to get acquired. It's going to happen. All right, well, we pretty much beat this one into the ground. So let's see, what else did we want to get into? Well, the next biggest story in VR gaming right now, without question, of course, is our boy Phil. And, so the Xbox thing has been going on for a long time, right? We've always been wondering, what is the deal? Like, what is your deal, Phil Spencer? What is your deal, Xbox? Why is there no VR? If we go back to the Xbox One X, we can remember that when they first started talking about the Xbox One X, they actually had a video clip of Todd Howard talking about like Fallout 4 VR and stuff, and it said, high-end VR and all of that. So we know that Microsoft at one point in time, they considered VR, and they were kind of thinking about VR. And then they scrapped it. It's obvious that they were like, oh, we dodged a freaking bullet here. They scrapped it, and there's been no VR from them for the longest time. And I've done a number of different shows. I've talked about this situation, and everybody always says, okay, well, the next generation, they're going to partner with Oculus. They're going to have some kind of deal, or they're just going to turn on a switch, and all the Windows mixed reality headsets are going to magically spring to life, and Halo is going to magically be developed in the cloud, and, all these games are just all of a sudden going to be made in VR. And so we've talked about this, and so here we are. This is Scarlet. We've got the arrival of the new next level platform from Microsoft. They got handed an L last time. They took a major L. They were like nowhere in contention. And so here they go again. And so I'm going to start off. We've got a couple of quotes here from Phil Spencer. So let me go ahead and read the first quote, and then we'll go ahead and get Wes and Ruuts, your guys' reactions from this. And let's see here. I got to find it. Hold on a second here. Where did I put that? Okay, I must have not. One second. I rendered one of them, and I must have forgot to render the second one. So hold on a second here. Okay. We need to go all files. Okay, 1 second here. Sorry, folks.
Oh, you're all good, dude.
Yeah. Philly G. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is a quote. This started it all off, guys. This was the quote that shocked a lot of people, because you read this quote and you start wondering, it might be 2025 or 2026 before we see any VR coming from Xbox. Kind of crazy. Okay, so here's what he had to say. I have some issues with VR. It's isolating. And I think of games as a communal, kind of a together experience. We're responding to what our customers are asking for, and nobody's asking for VR, Spencer said. The vast majority of our customers know if they want a VR experience, there's places to go get those. We see the volume of those on PC and other places. Okay, so we basically get this quote, and this was a bit of a shocker for a lot of people, because everybody thought, okay, now they will dip their toes in the VR market, because look at Sony, look at the freaking lead they got on them. They got such a lead. I mean, it's crazy. How is Xbox just going to continue to pretend that VR doesn't exist? Ruuts, let's start off with you.
I don't know. It's very weird. It's almost like they're Nintendo, It's like they want to say, we're doing what we do well, and we're going to continue to do it well, and we're the only ones that do this, which they aren't. You nailed it. Their last console, their exclusives suck. I don't even know anybody that owns Xbox. I shake my head every time I see them Xbox in somebody's house. It's not that it's bad hardware. It's just been a horrible cycle. And why would you go to the next cycle with them? And for them to take this stance on VR and continue, it blows me away, because I was one of those people that was sure that they were going to partner with Oculus, and it made sense, get the net. That was their only way to catch back up to Sony. But it's almost like they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They don't care about competing. And it's very bizarre to me. I don't understand the statement at all. So.
Okay, well, the very last sentence is very interesting here, because he says, we see the volumes of those on PC and other places. And you know what he's talking about there? He's talking about sales figures, okay? See, here's the thing. Microsoft internally, they get data. They get information. They pay money. They find out how much all these things are selling on various platforms. They know the volumes that are being sold on Oculus Store. They know, estimates and stuff. Oculus Store, Steam, etc., PlayStation. They know the volumes that are happening in VR. And it appears like Microsoft, they love money like everybody else. We know they love money. And Phil Spencer is saying, look, our customers, they're simply not asking for this. So what do you say to that, Wes? Their Xbox guys just don't care, man.
Yeah, when I read something like this, it's very difficult for me not to be triggered. That feeling you get kind of like when you're reading the title of some of Linus's clickbait, VR's dead stuff he did way back when. I get that feeling in my stomach, because it's hard for me to believe somebody who's the head of something as large as Xbox is this out of touch with what VR is. I find a hard time believing it. So he starts off by saying here that it's isolating and that it doesn't fit his vision of a communal kind of together experience. And first of all, this is just mind blowing to me, because first of all, how many people are in chat right now? Somebody typed the number in there. All of us are here together because of our love of VR. And before VR, I would never play games with other people. I always played by myself. And even though multiplayer still isn't my favorite thing to do, it was something I never did before. And now I actually do get in every once in a while. And I don't think anything that has brought me in to a communal experience quite the way that VR has. And he goes on here to say that the vast majority of customers know where to go get it if they want it. People just aren't asking for it. Well, it's just stupid. New and emerging technology. No one ever asks for it. No one ever wants it until they want it. And it's if VR is truly going to take off, he knows that he doesn't want to fall behind. So what I think is really happening here, he's got to answer to people above him, people at Microsoft who are dealing with a lot of other things other than video games, and they know what a hit Windows mixed reality was for them. And I think even if Phil Spencer wanted to get into VR, I'm not quite so sure he would be able to get the green light, so to speak, to do that. So essentially, when he makes statements like this, he's kind of like the PSVR guy saying that he's not interested in PC VR. Oh, I don't really need to play Stormlands because I have Gollum. Or you know what I'm saying? If you can't have it, then a lot of people put up this front like they don't want it anyway. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here from Phil Spencer.
Yeah. It's, the thing is, a lot of people really do get up in arms over these comments, but I look at it as almost like this is kind of back to reality, because we got Asgard's Wrath and Pistol Whipped and Stormland, and then all of a sudden Half-Life Alyx and the Quest is getting a new game every other day, and everything's starting to look so great. Like VR gaming, yeah, it's people are looking up VR gaming, they're buying Rift S's, things are getting better. And then something like this just slaps you in the face and lets you know we still got issues, man. Because the thing is, if there really was a lot of money to be made in VR, Microsoft would be right there. It's the same take I've had for so long. They've dodged a bullet and they continue to dodge a bullet. And what he said here, nobody's asking for VR. So what he's basically saying is, Microsoft is not going to get involved in VR until it beats us over the head practically, and we just have to do it. But other than that, we're going to try to dodge it. And you could, as a VR lover, you can say, well, F you, F you, that's bullshit. But from their standpoint, think of the incredible sums of money and all the effort and stuff that they've dodged here, because so many people say, oh, all they've got to do, flip a switch. All the Windows mixed reality headsets can work immediately. There's all kinds of PC VR games that could basically translate immediately to the Xbox One X, but they could do this with Scarlett. It'd work great. All the Windows mixed reality headsets. People don't realize you got to sit down and you got to think about this, because here's the deal. For them to support VR, the Xbox is not a high-end $3,000 thing. The Xbox is sold at Target, Costco, Walmart. This is a family-friendly platform. This is Joe Sixpack. It's Sally Walmart. It's soccer moms. And it's six-pack dads. And they love the Raiders. Let me tell you. No, but the Xbox is, that's the kind of product it is, right? There's people that buy Xboxes that don't know an HDMI cable from a freaking S-video cable. I've seen it happen, folks. And I'm kind of joking here a little bit, but that's their marketplace there. And so they know that those people, they're not begging for this. So they're basically dodging it. But wait a minute. He had another quote. This one was really, really interesting, because he freaking played the game that all of us would love to play. And he played it this summer. And even after that, so anyway, here's his response to a tweet that somebody tweeted at him and was like, because of, I think basically about what Shuhei Yoshida tweeted at him, he basically said, look, Sony, we make products that some people aren't asking for because sometimes we know better than the freaking consumers. And sometimes, sometimes, what was it? There was a famous quote from Henry Ford. If I just made what everybody else wanted, they would ask for faster horses. No, he went and made what people didn't know that they wanted, and then everybody wanted it. So anyway, Phil Spencer says, fair feedback. I've said publicly, I love how our industry has pioneered AI, physics, 3D, ray tracing, VR, AR, etc., etc. For us, it's about our focus on our innovations right now. I've played some great VR games. I got to play Half-Life Alyx in the summer. Amazing. It's just not our focus with Scarlett, bro. It's just not our focus. Okay, Roots, you seem like you're about to throw up in your mouth there. What happened?
Well, I just don't. What innovations are they doing? I mean, maybe the Scarlett is just going to blow us away. But if this last generation is anything that I'm going to see in the new one, I don't expect to see innovations, and it's just very short-sighted. And I think people forget, there was a lot of companies that existed that aren't around anymore, or aren't big dogs anymore, that didn't get into smartphones when they first took off, and other ones did, and they fell behind. And then all of a sudden you're like, Xbox who? Oh yeah, I remember when they used to make games, remember before they went under? I just think it's Phil Spencer is making very bizarre choices for me, and the only ones making more bizarre choices, in my opinion, is anybody that's picking up an Xbox. I don't care if it's S, X, Scarlet, whatever. To me, it's just you might as well go buy a Pimax right now. It just doesn't make sense. It's just they're not proven. So to me, anyway. So,
Hey, but Wes, real quick. So he's saying that look, people aren't really asking for this. Like it's such a tiny minority of people that are asking for this, and he's like, if you really want VR, it's out there. You can go to Sony, you can go to Quest, you can get a PC, and you can play these amazing experiences. He got to try this summer. He played Alex. It's great. There's stuff out there. There's wonderful people doing wonderful things. But hey, it's not our focus. We're not doing it. But the one thing I will say, the point that he did make, think of all the hate when we found out about Half-Life Alex. Think of the regular gamers that went ape-s over this because they were like, oh my God, they're forcing me to buy VR. Phil isn't lying. There's a lot of people out there that aren't asking for VR. And unfortunately, they are going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming to VR. It's interesting that he got to try Half-Life Alex. Like I was thinking in my head, why did Gaben give this guy a pass to the Magical Palace to play this shit? And he tried it in the summer. I wonder where it happened. Because remember at E3, weren't there people like saying they played Half-Life? They played a Half-Life VR game and everybody's like, oh no, we didn't believe them. Maybe those people really did play a Half-Life game. But they were saying that it freaking tracked your legs and shit or something. Remember that joke?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what do you think? Because there was this blowback with Half-Life Alex. So isn't he basically telling the truth that as much as we love VR, we're a niche within a niche, and the vast majority of people out there aren't asking for this?
Look, I get looking at emerging technologies in video games with that bottom line, from that bottom line viewpoint, how much money is it going to make me tomorrow? I'd like to also point out that's kind of the attitude that HTC takes with it. Instead of investing in the future, how much money can I make today? And you can see how that's working out for them. But, they all know that. Facebook knows that VR is not very profitable right now. Sony knows that it's not very profitable right now. That's pretty much the sentiment from Shuhei Yoshida when he says, sometimes we work very hard to make things that people aren't asking for. That's basically what he's saying. Basically, what's going on now is there's kind of a struggle, not a war like you said earlier, but a struggle to get a foothold, to begin to build these platforms. And by Xbox not participating in this, basically what they're saying to us is we don't think VR is going to be there within the next 7 years, because that's basically what a console generation is. It's 7 years. They're saying we'll get in it when the time comes, but we don't think it's coming this generation. And I think that it's very short-sighted. And I think, quite honestly, it's pretty much status quo for Xbox, because they've constantly, since their inception, have been playing catch-up with Sony. So I guess they're going to just do the same thing when it comes to VR. They're going to just play catch-up with Sony, with Facebook, and to some extent with Valve as well. But again, I don't think that it's totally in his hands. I think that this probably goes a lot higher than Mr. Spencer himself.
Yeah. We got some interesting comments too in chat. Scion VR says, hey, nobody asked for the friggin' Kinect. Nobody asked for that. Reckoner VR says people weren't asking for the iPhone, but Apple did it, and people bought it because it was compelling. And then VR Mania Q says Half-Life Alex on HoloLens 3, ? If possible on Windows Mixed Reality, why not HoloLens? Actually, Wes, what about this though? Because let's say Microsoft, they really do. I mean, no, I'm gonna go to Ruuts. So we're going back to Ruuts. Sorry, Ruuts. Let's say that Microsoft really does completely skips VR this entire generation of Scarlet. Not happening. Not interested. That's like Wes was saying, that could be like a 7-year period in time when you kind of think about it. Is that enough of a time frame where Microsoft goes AR? They just skip VR altogether and they go HoloLens 3, like VR Mania Q's talking about HoloLens 3. I mean, we know it's crazy. HoloLens 2 is like $2,000 or whatever, but 7 years, a lot can happen in 7 years. Maybe it gets down to like $600, and at that point, maybe it is. for some reason they've backed the AR horse, and they seem, I mean, I know they did Windows mixed reality, but to me that seemed more like they were trying to just have some kind of VR thing for Windows just for the sake of it. Not that they were like really, really interested in VR, because obviously they didn't bring any exclusives to VR. You know, we didn't get a legit Halo VR. We didn't get a legit Forza or Forza Horizon for VR, or a Crackdown or anything. They have these franchises that they could have brought to their Windows mixed reality platform. They could have made another ecosystem, like HTC Vive has Viveport, and Oculus has the Oculus Store, and Steam has Steam VR. But they didn't do any of that. It seemed like Windows mixed reality was almost just like throwing a little bone to the VR industry just to quiet them down a little bit. But they've always been AR guys. Is that going to be their strategy 7 years from now? Are they going to try to give us a HoloLens for $599.99?
I don't know. Talk about a niche within a niche, you know, like at least the VR hardware exists out there, and he's got to be aware of how big Alex is, even if he's not wanting to participate in the VR cycle. But I agree with what Wes was saying. I think in 7 years' time, they're going to be so far behind. Look what has came out in the last year for Sony, or even just in PC in 1 year. Imagine 7 years of advancement in not only technology, your library, you know, maybe Sony drags PlayStation 4 along to the PlayStation 6 as well, and you have 4, 5, and 6. Who knows, man? Like, I really feel in a gut way this is just such a big mistake on their end, and I don't know AR is going to save them. But
yeah, the one problem that they do really have is getting into the VR industry. That's what a lot of people don't get, is it's so effing complicated to get in. It's not an easy thing, man. That, like, this is what Xbox would have to do. They'd have to hire a gigantic staff of people just to provide customer support for the people that don't know what they're doing and they don't know how to hook the wires up right. So they got to hire a whole freaking staff of people that'll be able to explain all the problems that people have with their VR headsets, all the complaints, like it's not working, it's only working in one eye, you know, whatever. Like they're going to have support for it, right? It's a nightmare. They don't want to. It's a bunch of hardware. They'd have to service that. See, the thing is, you sell a bunch of VR headsets. How many headsets do people freaking return willy-nilly? I really do feel bad for all these manufacturers that are shipping like thousands of Quests, and people just buy a Quest, try it for a week. I didn't really like it. Send it back. I mean, it's your right as a consumer to do that, but you know how much money you're hitting that company for? Like, they're taking a major hit when you return something. And so getting into the hardware game, it is not for the faint of heart. But the worst part of the whole entire thing for Microsoft is they would need an entire bevy of developers that are all developing VR, and they've got to start big VR games, which are going to take 3 years to even see the freaking fruits of them. So what they're probably going to do here, if they realize that they absolutely have to eventually deal with this VR problem, and it's a problem for them, but if they decide they're eventually going to do with it, I think what they'll time it out is 3 years ahead of the next console after Scarlet. If they even stay in video games altogether, maybe they'll get out of it. But 3 years before that, Halo VR, baby, start working, start banging. And so, Wes, do you think that may be what's going to happen? Because I mean, they gotta create an entire roster of VR developers, man.
Well, to be honest, what I really believed we could see until these most recent statements from Mr. Spencer, I really thought that there could be some legitimacy to those rumors that we could see Oculus Rift support on the next Xbox, because it makes so much sense for Microsoft to have this ready-made platform ready to go with a history and a game catalog. And it makes sense for Oculus to be able to compete with Sony for the dollars of the console gamer. Because right now, even with Quest, even with PC, there's still 100 to 200 million console gamers out there that don't even deal with any of that stuff. And that's why kind of Sony isolates themselves a bit. And it doesn't seem like they're really trying to compete as much at times. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they don't really see Facebook as competition yet, because they have their own base, 100 million strong, that they're selling to. So really, that's what I thought we would see, is collaboration, because it makes so much more sense than starting fresh.
I'd actually completely disagree with that, though, from a standpoint of, like, I believe Facebook and Microsoft, they're straight competitors. Straight competitors. Like, no, they're all going after the golden fleece. You know, that they want what Apple has right now. They want the best walled garden that freaking trillions of dollars can buy. And it's what Apple has right now. The walled garden that Apple has. When you buy a song, a TV show, a movie, a game, or anything in that Apple ecosystem, they are just bringing money in like it is going out of style. And every company wants what Apple has. Facebook wants it. Microsoft wants it. It would be like, I mean, how would I explain this? It would be like the 49ers and the Seahawks coming together. You know, they both want to win the Super Bowl, man. They're not going to come together to try to win the Super Bowl. I don't think, and you were talking about it would be great for Oculus because they don't have a console competitor to Sony. But I disagree, man. Quest is a console. Quest 2 is coming straight for that ass. And Quest 3 even more so. See, I think Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, I think they've all got to deal with a major threat that is continued Oculus Quests, which are going to be mainstream products. They're going to be at Target, at Walmart, at Costco. It's going to be in a box. Everything is in there. They've got their own store. They have the Oculus store. They don't need Microsoft for anything. They want to steal Microsoft's customers. They don't want to partner with Microsoft. I just think these are two behemoths. No, they're going after the same golden fleece. They want a beautiful walled garden where they're going to make ridiculous sums of money. Oculus already has that walled garden built right now. I mean, they're starting it, the Oculus store. Facebook Horizon is going to be an even more elaborate version of that Disneyland where you're walled in and you got to buy that $9 soda and that $10 hot dog. And that's what they're all going for. Roots, what do you think? Do you think that there could be some kind of unholy union between Microsoft and Oculus? I don't know. Am I crazy? Aren't these guys like major competitors?
No, I was going with Wes, just in the sense of having that library and trying to compete with Sony on day one. If they was coming out with Scarlet, and all of a sudden they, like you said, they've got to get developers, they've got to do a whole bunch of steps to make all these games, and that's 3, 4, 5 years. And why not start with Robo Recall and all these games that are coming out that have been out for Oculus coming straight onto the Xbox. But I mean, either way, it's just it's probably not. I guess apparently it's not going to happen at all either way. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy thing. It is a crazy thing, and there's lots of different angles to think about. I mean, it's crazy because, dude, Microsoft is a big-ass company, man. And if they finally jumped on VR, it would be like the last holdout, finally coming aboard. But nope, they're freaking digging their heels in. They're not going to budge. One thing I was going to say about the Microsoft thing, isn't it weird that they bought Ninja Theory? Don't they own Ninja Theory right now? Don't they own NXIL Entertainment? They own some studios that have made some VR games. And I remember when they were buying them, people thought, oh, they're starting to build that VR stable. Now again, maybe 3 years from now, they start NXIL Entertainment and they say, okay, you've got 3 years, make a bomb-ass VR game. Same thing with Ninja Theory. Maybe they have a long-term strategy here, but it's unfortunately 7 years from now, and so we're going to have to wait. But maybe they have a plan ultimately. But we'll figure all that out. But let's go ahead and get into our next story. Those were two interesting topics, lots of different ways to look at it. Hold on a second here. Now I got to grab my next little thing. Okay, now I wanted to talk about a game that I have been mispronouncing the name of this game for like a year. I kept calling it Espire 1. It's not Espire. How come no one corrected me in chat or anything? It's Aspire. I aspire to be a secret VR operative. But I thought it was Espire. But, you know, I've mispronounced names before. Remember when I called transference for like 2 years? It was transference. Transference. So I've definitely had some bad mispronunciations. But anyway, I wanted to talk for a second here about Aspire 1 VR Operative because this game came out recently. It's one of the more newer releases that we've gotten, and it was delayed for a long time. Supposed to come out in, I believe, late August. Got delayed. We didn't know if we were going to get it this year. It was all quiet on the Western Front. And then all of a sudden, bam, they bring this game mere days after Stormland, mere weeks before Boneworks. I mean, it's a whole nother argument unto itself. Should all these people rush into late November, early December? Why? Why are they doing it? I don't get it, but I don't know. That's another question. But have you guys been playing this game? And what's your take on it? Let's go ahead and start off with Wes. What do you think about, first of all, it being delayed and all of that? Should it release into such a freaking busy marketplace? Should it maybe look for like the first week in January? What do you think about this whole thing?
Well, I mean, with regards to the delay, you know, I always say with any delay, save Gollum, any other delay besides that, I'd rather wait for a game than wait for a patch. And it seems like they kind of boggled this one here because, yeah, it runs pretty good on the PC, and I assume it runs pretty well on Quest, but it has been a nightmare disaster on PlayStation VR. These guys are locked with all the comfort settings on. The performance is terrible, and it's really been a disaster launch. And it makes me think that that's probably why they delayed so long. They probably wanted to get that squared away before they hit the market. But as time goes on and all these other games come out, taking away their momentum, they finally just gave in and said, fine, let's just take it out to market. But as far as the game goes, I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it. It's a good game. I know that it's a good game, but I don't feel like it's as good as I thought it was going to be. And let me preface this by saying I don't have a lot of time in it, a couple of hours. I haven't tried it on the harder mode, which I think probably is going to help it out quite a bit. But this is supposed to be a stealth game, but it doesn't make you play stealth. Like I can run in guns ablazing and kill everybody, and it's not that hard.
Yeah,
if I'm discovered, they can send like the legions at me, and I take them all out, and they quit looking for me after like 5 minutes. I can kill all their friends, but they'll call off the search in 5 minutes.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Yeah, it's like everything returned to normal. We had a couple of people assassinated, but everybody take your coffee breaks now. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I'm not sure if this game isn't as good as I thought it was going to be, or if this is actually the Asgard's effect, as we like to call it, where since we're in this new era of great games, what used to be great isn't so great anymore. Or I don't know if it's just the fact that I have a game that plays like this that's way better, and it's called The Persistence. The Persistence does a lot of things this game does, but it makes you be stealthy. It has a better echolocation radar thing than this one has, and it's procedurally generated, so it's way different every time I go into it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I need to give it more time. I think that it's good, but I'm not so sure how good.
Interesting. Okay, Roots, have you been able to put any time in this one? What do you think? Were you hyped for this game coming into it, or were you just like, oh, this is another game, I guess I'll just check it out like all the rest?
I was hyped a couple months ago, and then like Wes said, Asgard's Wrath, Stormland. I started thinking, it's going to be good, but I'm probably not as good, just because I'm expecting a little bit more AAA. Not only quality, graphics are good, but man, I want gameplay. I want quests. I want reasons to go back in. And I did enjoy my time in this, like Wes was saying, though. I just went through and was just blowing everybody away. I did play it on normal. I didn't go on to hard. Now we are going to review this eventually, so we are going to go back and play more. I want to play it on hard, and but it seemed like the one of the biggest things that I loved about this was the climbing, right? And that was great, but Stormlands did it better, and I feel like Wes nailed it. The delay fucked them really bad. Like if they would have just released it on time, they would have had a couple months early. Maybe like I don't understand this fixation with having to release games at the same time. You know, just delay the PlayStation for 2 months. Let everybody else get into Espire 2 months ago. Love it, buying it.
Oh yeah.
You're working on it. The timing is everything, and they put themselves between two huge games, and I think it really screwed them bad. And then the price isn't that forgiving either. You know, I don't know that it's a $30 game. I think it's maybe a $20 game. But that's just my personal opinion. So
yeah, no, I agree with you on this idea. Like for some reason, I think it's more the publishers get into this, where the publishers, they want it like on all platforms on this day, you know, they get really married to that. And that's not like, if you delay it for a couple of months and it comes out on PlayStation VR in February, you have a new trailer, it comes out on PlayStation VR in February. Well, it also ends up in the news cycle for everybody, and everybody kind of sees Aspire 1 again. It's almost like a good thing to have it delayed on other platforms, in my opinion. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying here. Now, one thing I want to say about this, though, is like, I do believe it is the Asgard's effect 100% with this game, because, okay, do you guys remember before No Man's Sky came out? In the PC VR gaming world, before No Man's Sky came out, there wasn't a lot going on. We basically played like Trover, you know, Trover Saves the Universe, and we were playing like Triton Down, underwater guy. And that was it, man. And then No Man's Sky came out, and it was like, bam, you know? And I think that if this game, Aspire 1, if this game had released before No Man's Sky, when it was as kind of dead and slow as it was, people would have been ranting and raving about this thing. Now, are there problems? Tons of them. There are. But it's so weird. This is a weird game where it's got some of the most egregious problems you can imagine, but it's also got some freaking dope ass aspects of it that look so good and feel so good. Okay, I can go hella negative. Number one, AI, absolutely god awful. Absolutely god awful AI. No question about that. Some of the voiceover work, you want to strangle some of those people. No question about that. When you first get into it and it's got all these freaking motion things everywhere, it's like, how do I turn all this crap off? But the best aspects of it is I'm walking down some of these hallways, and the way it's all lit up, and the way the walls and the floors, and then you got like this jazz beat that's like, you know, you got a little jazzy beat going on in the background, and the lighting, and there's differences with games. I've stood in different hallways in games, and not all hallways are created equal. Sometimes you're in a certain VR game and you're standing there, and I don't know if it's the frame rate or something, but it's like you don't feel good in that space. Like you're almost getting a headache just standing in that space. And then when I'm in Aspire 1, man, I feel like I'm standing in a beautiful freaking nice ass office building. The hallways look great. The lighting looks great. Some of the special effects that you do in this game, yeah, the climbing is not as good as Stormland, but this ain't Insomniac, man. This is Digital Load. These are some dudes in Australia. This ain't 50 dudes at Insomniac. I think it's pretty good. You can grab a lot of objects. You can flip yourself over. The way the bodies, like another complaint I have, you shoot a guy, and he just crumbles into a freaking pile of rubbish. That's really weird how when they fall down, like, but the slow motion effects, there's some great stuff about this. And let's go back to Wes. Wes, like when you're in hallways and you're seeing the lighting there and everything, did you get any of that I'm talking about?
100%, and I think that the maps are one of the strengths. I mean, they are fairly linear, but not totally. You do have some forking, branching paths. But I think above all that this game visually shows you the power of good lighting because there aren't super detailed textures in this game. It's all pretty low as far as the detail goes, but the lighting is just phenomenal. And the climbing, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, it adds a different dimension to this game because you're not just going, forwards, backwards, left, and right. Now you can go up and down. You can go in and out of the ductwork. Again, Persistence did that better, but they did it very well here as well. And yeah, I think that again, there are some things about this game that left a very good impression on me, and that's why Roots and we have decided we're going to play through the entire thing on the harder difficulty and do a full review because there is a lot to like here.
Yeah, and also one other thing is like just the production value in general, like the voice work, some of it bothers me a little bit, but they've got a lot of voice work. I mean, they have their robots that you get into the different model robots and you've got upgrades and there's things that are happening. I think they do some pretty good production. Like I can see why people were at E3 and they were playing this at E3 and they're like, "Whoa, this is the next big VR game," because there is some nice production going on. It's just the AI is where it goes really bad, and that's where and yeah, you can run through this game grabbing hella guns. I mean, I don't know how many. I got freaking Uzis in both hands, and I'm shooting the guys, and then I'm grabbing their guns. And yeah, you can definitely do that. But I just think the baby's being thrown out with the bathwater on this one, and I really believe it's Asgard's effect. But you know what? That brings us to our next topic, and it's kind of about the Asgard's effect. And speaking of Asgard's, why don't I grab an Asgard's trailer? I can throw that on there and we can talk a little bit about this idea. The idea of Generation 2 for VR software. Are we legitimately in Generation 2 of VR software? And the reason why we might start thinking about this is because in these last couple of weeks, a lot of things have happened. Okay, first of all, we've had the arrival of Asgard's Wrath, which is one of the most detailed, lush, beautiful VR productions we've seen up to this point in time. It's obviously a lot of money thrown at this thing. This is a meaty game. It takes full advantage of VR, probably in everybody's top 5 for the year, guaranteed. It's going to win a lot of VR Game of the Year awards. So we got this one. Then we got Pistol Whip, which showed us off the rhythm shooting genre. A lot of people fell in love with that. Although, how quickly do people forget about things? We've kind of moved on from the whole Pistol Whip drama. Then we get Stormland. And we get Espire. We get Espire 1. We get these Boneland trailers. Boneland. We get these Bonework trailers that look absolutely incredible. Boneworks is coming out on December 10th. Then we've got millions of games hitting the Quest, but that's kind of a different issue there. But what do you think, man? Is this Generation 2 for VR software, or is this just kind of like a random occurrence, a perfect storm of games that have been in development for years, all of a sudden finally being ripened on the vine, and now they're ready to go? They've been baking in the oven, and they're perfectly baked, and they're taking them out, and they're nice and toasty. We got to put that butter on it. But what about next year? What about first quarter? If we're in Generation 2, then the train isn't going to stop. But if this was just a random confluence of beautiful things, then it's going to fall off a cliff. But, we do have stuff like Saints and Sinners and stuff like that. So, Roots, what do you think? Generation 2 of VR software, has it begun?
I think it started for sure. Just because of what you just said, like some of these games we've gone into now, I go back to other games that I might have played 2 months ago that were perfectly fine, that I enjoyed, that I would have been my go-to game. One of them you showed, Carnage Chronicles. I had more fun playing that with mainframe than I've had in a long time in a lot of games. And I don't know that I would go back because even if they added levels, or I guess for the show I would, but it's the gameplay that's changing, the quest, the beefiness, like you said. It's not only, when I came into VR, it was a very shallow thing. It was amazing, but every game went so far. It was like you get in, everything looks amazing. Oh my God. And then 30 minutes later, you're like, it starts to wane. And as we go further, like I mean, I've spent, I think, 4 hours in Stormland alone today, so I keep wanting to go back in there and just grind. And it's those things that bring you back in. It's those things that developers have fine-tuned in the flat game world for 20 years that for some reason just were lacking. They didn't have those reasons to go back in, those things you just were sitting there and you was like, man, I just feel like I want to go play Destiny 2 again. There's certain hooks that are starting to come in, and these developers are making them. And Wes and I were making the case that if we're not in full 2.0, if we're somewhere in between, there's a lot of developers that are really going to be screwed. Like they're getting ready. They're set to release games now. They've been working on 2-3 years ago that 3 months ago would have been great. Now they're going to come out as mediocre, good at best. So it's a really weird time in VR. It's going to be really weird for a lot of developers, and it's going to be really shitty for a lot of developers, like really bad. Just because there's certain games now that I just don't want to play anymore because these ones are so good, and it's not going to get better with Alex and Saints and Sinners and Medal of Honor and
Lone Echo 2.
Lone Echo 2. You got Iron Man. Like, I mean, there's just one after another. I think we're there.
Yeah, we really could. I mean, now that you think about it, you think about like Walking Dead Onslaught, that got delayed to next spring, and you got the other Walking Dead game, and Alex is obviously the biggest of the bunch. So yeah, I mean, we do look like maybe this really is the very beginning of Generation 2, which that's incredible, but of course it does bring up these side effects. And one side effect, like I've made this argument over the last week or so, and part of it is because I'm one of these guys that gets keys to games, and there's so many freaking games, and I feel bad because I want to give all of these developers an equal chance, and I want to appreciate these keys that they're giving me, but god damn it, man, there's too many of these things. And one thing I worry about, though, and this goes back to like Phil Spencer talking about we've seen the volumes, right? I don't think there's enough VR gamers to support all these freaking games that are hitting constantly. Wes, take a game like The Curious Tale of the Stolen Pets. Is that game going to survive? Because, okay, that's fast travel games. High quality developer. They did Apex Construct. They're bringing out they're working on Budget Cuts 2 coming on December 12th. But are they going to make their money back on that thing? Maybe on the Quest they will, but like games are getting buried, right? How's everybody going to buy all of these?
Well, I think specifically, I get the point you're saying. I don't know if that's the best example. I think games like Curious Tale of the Stolen Pets and Freediver, they're kind of their own thing because they were made by smaller teams within the larger company, and they're shorter experiences that you're only going to be playing once, and they're priced as such. $10, $15. They don't cost very much. And let's be honest, they're still coming out in the era of VR gaming where most enthusiasts are buying everything that's got any kind of quality to it. Most people pick up most of the good stuff from the good studios. But in general, yeah, a lot of things are going to get lost in the shuffle here as we move into this new era. But I do think 100% it's a good thing. It's going to force these guys to sink or swim. These guys that were giving us these janky tech demos are going to have to pick up their game, or they're going to be forgotten. And it is unfortunate because it's these very same developers that kept us going through the infancy when VR wasn't profitable at all. If it weren't for those guys, we wouldn't have had anything to play. So it kind of sucks to see them get tossed aside, but it's also encouraging because you see companies like Mirrorwind, Improvement. Think about Mervils and then the jump to Shadow Legend. There are developers everywhere that are making these leaps and bounds based upon having experience in the platform now. And I think while some guys are going to get cast aside, others are going to shine. And it's a pretty exciting thing, if you ask me.
Yeah, so looking at chat really quick here, Nathy, by the way, in chat, and he's saying, I expect Half-Life Alyx setting the standard of what we will call the future of gaming. VR developers will have to step it up as people want more of the quality Valve served them. And he says they will not be that interested in the old library. So, yeah, it's the biggest question I have is like, Ruuts, let me go over to you. Okay, let's pretend you're not on YouTube, you're not on Twitch, you're not doing none of this. You're just a regular VR gamer guy, but you're into this industry. You got a Rift or PlayStation VR or whatever it is you got, and you're buying VR games. You're just a monthly guy buying VR games. Are you buying 10 games this month? And what are you doing with all 10 of them? Are you like really cycling between them? Or are you buying them and they're just sitting there? You bought Espire 1 for $29.99 and it's just sitting in your library. Don't tell me you're doing that, because I think maybe you've done that in the past, right?
I'm a horrible example. I buy everything, or try to anyway. But I am starting to get to a point though where, because when I first started, I would rival Justin if I started in the beginning, because he's got so many games, because he's like me, he buys everything. But I'm getting to a point now where I'm starting to second guess games, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, ooh, I'm glad Alex picked up Espire 1. I don't have to pay for it. Certain games that maybe I would have in the past just bought everything. So I am starting to slow down a little bit. If it's worth anything though, usually I'm going to want to own it. Example, with Asgard's Wrath and Stormland, we try to switch everything up as far as who's buying what, and I buy everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of would be the guy that would be stacking them games up. What about you, Wes? Like if you were just a free agent, non-YouTuber, just a regular gamer out there, how many games would you buy a month? Like what would you have bought this last month? Pistol Whip, all of these, or would you just buy like one or two?
Well, the way I was, it's easy for me to say that I would have bought them all now, but when I think back to the way I was before I met my friends here and started doing this, I was very budget minded, and I wouldn't buy anything when it was new. It would really have to be like Stormlands or Asgard's Wrath for me to buy something on day one, because what I was doing back then was just waiting for sales on everything. And that's probably what I would still be doing. I'd be buying these big AAA deals because literally these are the best games that we've ever seen. But beyond, Asgard's Wrath, Pistol Whip, and Stormlands, games like Espire 1, I probably would wait until I could get that for $15 or $20 before I picked it up. Still buying everything, but on a delay.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a different trailer on here because I've been running this one a little too long. Trying to find a Stormland real quick. I don't know where it is. Hold on a sec. It's definitely an interesting situation here. I wanted to grab a couple of quotes from chat. So Dave Station VR says, do normal gamers buy 10 games a month?
No.
Not sure about that one. Yeah, they don't. That's why I'm worried here. And then Kevgret, right below him, says, wait a minute, we were begging for games. Now we're saying there's too many? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, man. There's too many. There's not enough VR gamers, bro. Did anybody see a tweet that Blair Renaud of the guy that's making Lo-Fi? He tweeted like just the other day. I don't have his tweet ready that I could pop it on the screen here, but he tweeted looking at VR sales numbers and it's just bad or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing it, but
I'd like to point out, it's funny that you say that because I did see that tweet. It was 2 or 3 days ago, And just today, he tweeted out that Technolust is on sale for $10. So I kind of see the correlation there, what he's saying.
Alrighty, all right. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much the topic on the Generation 2. I guess the last little part of it, and you guys did talk about this when you broke it down a little bit, but the question really going forward is like, God, don't you feel bad though for all these little smaller developers, man? Because if their game came out like last summer, they could have been totally fine. And now, if their game comes out like in the first quarter of 2020, they might just be a dead duck. I mean, they might sell like 30, 40 copies and just get lost in the shuffle like you wouldn't believe. And I feel bad for these guys, man. But I guess this is just such a dog eat dog world. You just don't know what's going to happen. It's timing is everything, right?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes most developers make, and I've said it before, is they are more attached to their project than what it's worth. And I think that's the biggest thing they're going to have to concede is like, maybe we wanted to charge $20. Maybe it's now a $10 game. Maybe it's even a $5 game. I'm it's like the stock market, let's sell. Let's get it, whatever we can get from it. Do it because time is ticking, and every game that comes out, especially once Alex comes out, everything fucking changes overnight completely. We think things are the way they are now with Stormland and Asgard's Wrath. I think it's going to be 10 times more the other direction, and so they just need to come out with the right price point, and try to get what they can for the project that they've been working on for 3 years that is now just not as good as it was a few months ago.
On the screen, I've got Dement by Parasitic Entertainment. You guys got to play this. Now, $40. I mean, madness, right? I mean, straight up madness when you see what was that line, in Spartacus or whatever? This is madness. I mean, that's basically what it is when you saw the price for Dement. But I was actually positive on this game. I played this game. I didn't see a ton of it. Like, I got a lot more to play through. But I was positive on it because, for me, it like gave me a feeling like it was like it reminded me of Oregon Quarter. I'm a huge Oregon Quarter fan, and like the one thing that really gets me is like I'm a vibe and an atmosphere guy, and I thought this game had great atmosphere, great vibe. But like you speak to, this game was made by probably one dude for the most part. I mean, might have had a couple other guys with him, but I kind of got the idea that it was basically one guy. And like you said, working on it for 3 or 4 years, putting his entire life into this game, probably putting his life savings into this game, releasing it for $40. These could be the casualties of war. Wes, what do you think about this? What did you think about Dement?
I think that you're spot on. And when Ruuts started saying what he said just a moment ago, Dement was the very first thing that popped up into my mind, because this is a good game. You're right. There's a lot to do here. This game, as far as the gameplay goes, it's very detailed, very a lot of variability, a lot of different aspects to this that is uncommon in VR gaming, to get a game this deep as far as the gameplay goes. And there's a lot of game here. There's hours upon hours of game, and he's not even finished with it yet. So yeah, you're right. This guy has put his heart and soul into this thing for 3 years, and it's a solid game. It's a lot of fun, and I think he's doing a disservice to himself by pricing it according to what he thinks it's worth, and basically driving his own sales down. I mean, if you could sell one copy at 40 or sell 5 at 25, which one benefits you more, right? And I think that this guy's pricing himself out, and he thinks he's going to win people over time. I get it, but over time, these games are just going to keep getting better and better the way that they have. And I think that he's making a misstep here. And it's unfortunate. Like you said, this is a solid title, especially if you're into horror games. I just think, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't going to ever find that out.
Well, one little interesting angle of it, though, is have you noticed that very Japanese-centric kind of games, they almost price whatever the hell they want, you know what I mean? And it's because they're going towards this different audience. And when you actually play this game, it's not really that Japanese-centric game that you might have like you see the like title screen of it and stuff, and you're like, oh, Silent Hill. You know, Silent Hill VR, right? I mean, that's basically what they're trying to do here. And some of it is a little bit Silent Hill. Like you're looking at these cabinets and stuff and the little messages pop up and it's like, there's nothing really to be interested in here. I mean, it's kind of the stuff that you would see in a Silent Hill as you're walking around and stuff. So it does have a little bit of that. Do you think, Ruuts, that some of these developers, when they do bring out something that kind of has this Japanese thing going on, and for Dement, the idea is that it's basically Silent Hill. It's a Japanese thing, right? So they can price whatever they want. Do you think they can do that? And do you think it's going to work with this where, I mean, not work with this, but it might work for something like Last Labyrinth where you have a little anime girl running around? Isn't that $40 as well?
Yeah, it's $40 as well. And I still think that one's a little overpriced, but people rave about that one. So I still have, I put in a message to the developer for a key and have yet to hear back, but wanted to check that out. But, you know, I think $40 is what Stormland cost, you know, like it's what Asgard's Wrath is the price, you know, and I get that those were subsidized and they probably are $60 games, if we're being honest, as far as price wise, but you can't come out with the same, you know, the game was pretty good, but it's not a $40 game by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I enjoyed my time in it, but if I was going to buy it and I saw $40, I wouldn't pay that. I know he put a demo out though, so people can try it for free. So that's kind of good. So
Yeah. So I mean, the market is going to decide, right? Ultimately, the market is going to figure this out. I wonder about those games like Focus on You or whatever, you know, like the little anime girl where you get to meet. Like, no, I mean, I wonder, like, do they really sell enough copies? Like, maybe they do. Like, maybe there's just thousands of people buying those that you wouldn't believe, and they're just buying it like crazy. I don't know. But speaking of buying games like crazy, speaking of deals and pricing, we might as well check out a little bit of Black Friday stuff going on. And okay, I'm going to try going to the webinar. Hopefully this will work. I didn't actually test this before we started, so let's see what happens here. Okay, Ruuts needs to be moved down a little bit. Okay, hold on one second, folks. I'm going to move
Them's
Ruuts down.
The biggest
there
Ruuts I've ever seen.
yeah.
There we go. Okay, and this is not in the right spot, but oh well. Move it up over like this. There we go. Okay, whoops, I did not want to click on onward. Okay, so this is the Oculus store, folks. There are actually some sales going on. Oh, I don't have Wes. Hold on.
Wes is a robot.
Error.
Hold on, we don't have Wes. Wes is now Tarzan. Okay,
That's
see.
not me. That's my mom.
Okay, now we got Super Wes. And I will put him back over here like this. And then let's see, we will lower him down. Oops, not down there. And then, I need to lower this down. Sorry, guys, I should have did this before we did the show. This will happen occasionally. Wait, let me see. There we go. Okay. Took a little while, and Ruuts is super sized, but that's all right. Okay, so we've got the webinar operational. That's the key thing here. And
right.
Hopefully people can actually hear everybody's voice in this one. I think they can. Okay, so basically we've got, you know what I might need to do, though? I might need to mute. No, that's muted. That one's good. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, so looking at the deals, Arizona Sunshine, that's 50% off. You got Onward, almost 50% off. One that I liked, you know, you mentioned Vitruvius VR, the developer of Mervils and Shadow Legend, maybe a possible acquisition target of Facebook. And they've got Shadow Legend VR for $15. That's 40% off. That's a pretty decent deal. Seeking Dawn, 80% off, only $6. That's probably the best deal of the bunch, maybe. But what about you guys? Have you noticed any To the Top is $10? Fisherman's Tale. I don't know if this is cross-buy, but if this is cross-buy, You grab that for $10, and you could also get the Quest version possibly in the future. Free Diver, we were just talking about that developer a minute ago. $5 if you want to grab that one. I haven't checked all these out, but what are some other, any Black Friday things you guys have noticed anywhere? Any great deals?
Well, there's a lot of really good deals uh, on hardware. The software sales are just kind of like status quo this year. I feel like, I mean, with the exception, obviously, that price for Seeking Dawn is amazing. Anybody who doesn't have that should throw down the 6 bones or whatever they want for that. And Freediver, that was a good deal for Freediver as well. That's only an hour long, but it's a great hour. But hardware is where it's at this year, which I think it's timely. I think that it should be hardware because hopefully the effect that Half-Life Alex is having on the market, hardware is what people are looking for. And out of all the hardware deals that I've come across, none have been quite as good as the deal on this Black & Decker cordless. I'm just playing. No,
Different show.
PlayStation VR. The PlayStation VR bundles are the deal this year. I really had hoped that Oculus Quest, even if just for a week, had hoped that they would knock $50 off the price. The Rift S $50 was to be expected. To be quite honest, I feel like by springtime, that's going to be the permanent price of the Rift S anyway. I really would have liked to have seen the Go come down to $100 because it was $150 last year, and the place that it had in the market last year isn't what it is this year with the Quest out. The Go really doesn't have a place anymore. So I would like to have seen that come down a little bit less. The PlayStation VR bundles, those are the deals this year, $200 and $250 respectively. Those are pretty much the favorite thing that I've seen so far.
Yeah, the best deal I've seen, it is those 2 PlayStation bundles, and it's actually GameStop, if you can believe it, which, I mean, all of us want to stay as far away from a GameStop as humanly possible. I mean, you would like to, right? But they have a deal. They have this deal where it's $199. You get all those games, but you also get like a $25 GameStop gift card. So that is like the deal. That is the best deal out there. Of course, the Rift S, $50 less, so you get it for $350. The Samsung, there was a Samsung deal for the Odyssey Plus. Looks like it's all been bought up. So if you're hoping for that, because I'm clicking on it now and it's like available from these sellers, so like it kind of died. But it was $230 for the Odyssey Plus, which actually, have you guys ever considered this, having a headset that is just for like VR experiences or for seated games with like Xbox controllers or, like Trover or something? It might look best in that Amazon Odyssey Plus with just an Xbox controller. You're not going to get hurt by the crappy controls because you're using the Xbox controller or whatever. Or maybe you're just seeing something like The Bond or some of those like Google Spotlight stories, some of these different experiences. Could you have a Samsung? Because isn't an Odyssey like higher resolution than a Rift S technically?
That's what they say.
And it's OLED too.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, I think that the OLED is more of a negative now than a positive. I prefer the clarity that you get from an LCD. And honestly, if we're being technical about it, I think PlayStation VR had the idea when they went with the AMOLED, because the AMOLED has the black levels, it has the subpixel arrangement, so you get the best of both worlds. But then again, I don't know, it may cost more to manufacture with the AMOLED than it does with either of the other 2 options.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, certified pre-owned Vive for $350. That's kind of a decent deal. Well, it's not too bad because you could always upgrade to the Knuckles later. You'd have the base stations already.
Does that come with base stations?
I think so. Let me click on it. Yeah, it's $349. It comes. It's like certified pre-owned. So you're getting Vive controllers and base stations in a Vive, but it's basically used. But I think you do get a 1-year warranty on it. And it's not a bad deal if you're like slowly going to move up to an index, you know,
That's what I was just
especially if you're
thinking.
like a Half-Life Alyx, you know, you want to just get a VR kit and then maybe you just get index controllers. Because isn't it true if you buy index controllers by themselves, you get Alyx for free, I think.
That is true.
And so you could play it. You wouldn't have the Valve Index, but you'd have the controllers, and you know, so maybe not a terrible deal there. But yeah, we don't really get the beautiful Black Friday deals that you'd like to see. Have you guys seen any like other deals though, where it's like a graphics card or some crazy deal, or like a SSD? I haven't really been paying attention to things. I probably should have done a little bit of homework.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to look for was an SSD, or Wes and I were talking about that, just hardware, that type of stuff. And then I just had this thought of a racing wheel, and then it was in my cart, and it was ordered, and it was on my way. So, but I picked up the Pro actually. I didn't pick it up from GameStop just because I wanted to get it that day. I was able to run down to Best Buy and pick it up, and it came with Call of Duty, which was actually pretty good because my daughter wanted it, so I just gave it to her, and now I'm playing PSVR on the Pro, and it's 1,000 times better. I couldn't believe the difference the quality look made. You know, the difference the Pro is. So,
Of the different games that you've played on Pro, which one do you think had the biggest like, wow, that's really different?
it's toss up between Farpoint and Resident Evil, probably. Both of them were just amazing. Farpoint was just crazy. The just the way the rocks look, the detail, the people, especially specifically the guy in the that's in the station and stuff. You're looking at him up close and everything. It was just really good. And I was telling Wes in the last episode that I'd gotten to the point where I didn't realize that the Slim was limiting my game playing. I was like kind of putting off going into VR on the PlayStation unless I had to for the show. And then and now it's like I want to go back in because it just looks so good. And it could be the Rift S that screwed everything. Once I got to that clarity, combined with the 2080 and the super sampling, it just made the PlayStation Slim just look that outdated.
Yeah, man, Farpoint, I'm telling you, this game right here, this is the one game that people should really feel jealous of if they don't got a PlayStation VR. Because I was so late to the party with this game because I always wanted to get the aim controller with it. And I like missed my chance when it originally had the bundle, and then it was like firewall bundles and stuff. And then I finally got a firewall bundle, and then I was like, I backtracked and I was like, oh yeah, I got to buy Farpoint. And then I was playing it and I'm like, oh my God, dude, I'm freaking on Mars. It looks hella good. You know, my gun is right here. I'm moving my gun around and looking at my gun and these freaking giant bugs and stuff. It is an awesome game. I wonder, what are these guys working on? Impulse Gear. I wonder if they're working on like a PlayStation VR 2 launch banger. Farpoint 2, baby. I don't know. I actually haven't finished this. Could there be a Farpoint 2, Wes? You've finished it probably, right?
It's debatable. The ending is ambiguous. There are people who said, "Oh, come on, man, it's clearly over by what you're seeing there." But I don't think so. I think that they could take it off in another direction if they wanted to and do a sequel to this,
Well, it
because
had
there
to,
are things that are left open ended.
well, it has to do with time travel or time manipulation. Anytime you have time manipulation in there, who knows? You know, maybe another ship came through it a second earlier, you know, and everything's, who knows? I mean, they could change all sorts of stuff. So,
Or you have these guys do something completely different. I mean, they've got crazy talent. It wasn't a gigantic team. Like I don't think Impulse Gear is like 80 people or anything like that. I think it's a smaller team, and look what they were able to do. I mean, they obviously had the financial backing of Sony and they had plenty of time, and this was earmarked as like a major banger of a game for them. So it worked out pretty nicely. But you know what? Speaking of PlayStation VR games, we've actually got a couple of different PlayStation VR related topics. But before we get into just pure PlayStation VR stuff, I mean, in terms of like, what the hell is Sony doing this fourth quarter? Maybe what they were doing was, maybe they knew what they were doing. And maybe they thought, hey, we don't need Iron Man, dog. We don't need Pixel, what's that, Paper Beast by Pixel Reef. We don't need any of these other games because we got Gollum. We got Gollum, and Gollum is a shining star. And so I got to tell you guys, I had some PC problems this last week on Saturday. I have like all this like monitors that are all right here, but my PC's actually over there, but my monitors are right here. But right above here is my attic, and that's where all the Christmas decorations are. All right, and so I had to move all this stuff out of the way to get the Christmas decorations. So went ahead and did that, right? Put everything back. PC did not want to work, and for several days, like, no monitors were working. I had to like take out my little CMOS battery and put it back in, but anyway, it's back working now. Things are good, but for a couple of days I didn't have any PC VR action. I didn't have any Oculus Rift Valve Index action. So I fired up PlayStation VR, I fired up Gollum, continued to play it, and I gotta tell you, man, I think this game is hella underrated. I think it's a beautiful game. It's like a beautiful world that you're in. Let me actually switch up to a different trailer here, though. This is actually like just straight up gameplay from the beginning of the story. And it takes quite a long time for them to get started up in this thing. But Wes, what about you? I believe you've been playing a little bit of Golem more. What do you think about it?
It grows on me every time I play it because, I love to explore large spaces in VR, and this thing is absolutely sprawling. And not only that, but I mean, like you said, it's beautiful from a production standpoint. It's absolutely beautiful, not only visually, but the soundtrack is absolutely awesome. The first time I played it, it was kind of underwhelming for me because I used only the adaptive locomotion with the headset and the one move controller. And with the tracking limitations of the one camera setup, it didn't work very well. And I had to constantly be reorienting myself by, pressing and holding the button in and recentering. But then they added in support for this little guy. And this has saved Golem for me. This is the PlayStation Move navigation controller, $2 at GameStop if you can still get one. $2 pre-owned.
Oh wow!
And ever since I started playing with this, it's been a night and day difference. And I gotta say, probably the best melee that I've experienced on PlayStation VR. What do you think? Have you tried any melee on PSVR that's been any better than this?
Well, the combat, honestly, I don't know that I'm totally in love with the combat, but it works good. And the thing is, it's 1-to-1. It is very similar to Until You Fall in a certain way. It's kind of like the guy is swing, so you got to like time it, and then you got to go bang. You got to do your thing, and basically it's all about you got to block all of their key strikes, and then the guy leans over a certain way, and you got to hit that, whatever that body part is. And I was talking about this the last time I talked about this game. One of the things that is kind of difficult about it is you got to get really up close to whatever you're fighting, because when it falls down or whatever and allows you a chance to hit it, you've only got like a split second. And if you don't hit it right away, you don't get that damage in. And then now you got to do an entire another block over again. The thing that I like about the game is like you're in this bedroom, right? You're this little girl. She's bedridden. She was in a major accident, and so she's not walking around or anything. She's stuck in her bed, but she has this magical thing that she's holding in her hands. And I thought it was really cool because you're seeing this one world, and then you hold this up and it's like zzz, you see this portal to another world, and as you bring it closer and closer to you, it envelops you more. You pull it away and it becomes just a small little thing. So you're like in these two different worlds. And right now, the graphics that we have and the capabilities of the VR headsets that we have in terms of like resolution, field of view, and all this stuff, it's not that great, but and in fact, it's really kind of low when you think about PlayStation VR and its resolution. But just the way that you're in these two different realities God damn it, man. We're going to be able to do so many incredible things in VR once we have like photorealism and stuff, mixing in multiple worlds and having little windows of portals. Like you could have 7 different worlds, little portals, and you grab them and you expand them and then you close out one. I mean, the thing that's crazy about VR, like everybody wants VR to get to the point where it can simulate what we actually have going on in this real reality here. But the thing is, VR can go beyond that. It can do shit you never could do in real reality. And so, yeah, we're not quite there from photorealism and everything. But when we get there, I'm telling you, it's over. That's why Phil Spencer, what are you doing, bro? VR cannot be denied, you know. But I what did you think about like being able to just take your thing and move it back? Because you know when you're trying to get those blue things out of the little cages where it gives you a message on how you're supposed to block or whatever, and then it flies at you and you're like in these 2 different worlds.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought it was a really unique concept. It was a little bit story heavy at first, which is okay with me, but I can see where that's going to put a lot of people off. Some people don't care about that. They just want to play. I'm not like that, but the concept with the little beam thing I thought was really cool. The echoes, I think it's interesting that they've put these echoes everywhere in there just to tell the story as you go along, but it's not just instead of just giving you narration, you have to find the little bits of the story. And of course, you know me, I've got to collect every one of them. So I'm scouring this world trying to find every one that I can get. But yeah, I thought it was a really unique way to tell a story. And, you know, that's one of my favorite things. When a game will let me explore and tell me a story while I'm doing it, I'm in love. And this game does a really good job of both.
Yeah, Dave Station VR in chat says nav controller hype. They literally are $2. So good. And Kevgret says only way to play Gollum is with the nav controller. 15-year-old technology to the rescue. Man, has it really been 15 years since the freaking PlayStation Move? I remember Sports Champions. Why don't we have that in VR, by the way? But, you know, that's another story, like a little Wii Sports type thing. But, yeah, so what I've been doing, I don't have the nav controller, but what I do have is a DualShock 4, and I just use it in my left hand, and I just use the thumbstick, and even that is a pretty big improvement. Paradise Decay mentioned that he played the entire game basically with a DualShock in the left hand and then a Move controller in the right hand. It's really weird because this game does not use 2 Move controllers. There's no reason to turn on your second Move controller because you think if they use 2 Move controllers, just put the movement on the left controller. Just aim it and hit the button and have one button for reverse. It's all you got to do. I'm not sure, but they are patching things. Highwire Games, they have done some patches, and you know, this is a quality game. It's a quality game. It is a bit expensive, but if you buy the physical version at Target, I believe it's $29.99. So you can get it for $30. You get $10 off. It is a bit pricey, but thank God the PlayStation VR got a pretty big banger here for Christmas because, well, that goes into our next topic, which is like PlayStation in general. Did they freaking drop the ball or what? Now, here's an argument I make. I say, PlayStation, come on, where's your big fourth quarter game? They've had one every single year. I guess Gollum has to be it. I think that's a little bit too much pressure on Gollum personally. But where's their big one? You know, where's their Borderlands 2? Where's their Skyrim VR? Where's their Astrobot? And if we had Steve Bishop from VR Roundtable, if we had him on the show right now, he would make this argument that, hey, Sony's winding everything down. PlayStation 5, man, PlayStation 5. They're not going to have a big PlayStation VR game this Christmas. But my argument is, who cares about PlayStation 5, dude? PSVR is its own private ecosystem. You know, it's like its own little thing. It's like its own private console. You got to own a PlayStation VR. All of the software it only works for PlayStation VR, really. I mean, well, the true VR stuff only works for PlayStation VR. It's like its own private console. Doesn't it need its own private fourth quarter banger? Roots, what do you think? What was Sony doing here? Did you think they thought for sure they'd get Iron Man and the delay caught them off guard and that would have been their Christmas game?
Well, maybe wasn't the Walking Dead, was that supposed to come out for Onslaught? Was that coming out for PlayStation as well?
It was.
So, I don't. Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I see the argument of PlayStation 5 and winding down, but then what is Iron Man? Why, that doesn't, Iron Man's coming out on PlayStation 4. So I mean, at some point you want to still release some titles, but I wouldn't expect to see any big title like the big ones like the Astrobot and stuff. I think you won't see that. That will come out in PlayStation 5. Anything that's going to be you got to look at it from the developer standpoint. It's like, do you want to limit yourself to the PlayStation Slim 4, or do you want to be able to use the power of the PlayStation 5? And there's a big misconception that some people have that there won't be PlayStation 5 VR exclusives, and I think that that's naive, big time. That'd be a seller for me, even with the old hardware of PlayStation VR. I'm like, oh my God, there's an exclusive coming out. I'm getting it for the PlayStation 5. I know there's going to be a time period where they're going to release both, but they will switch over. But I don't know. I think there'll be a big title coming out next November.
Yeah. So Kev Grant in chat, he says they wanted it to be Iron Man, but I guess it wasn't ready. Dave Station VR says Stardust Odyssey, which I believe is coming on December 3rd. Stardust Odyssey is getting set up to be a big fourth quarter one, but it's no Astrobot or Iron Man. What about Wes? What do you think? Like, forget about PlayStation 5 for a second. That's a major topic, and we're going to hit it in just a minute here. But real quick, where's the banger, man? Where's the fourth quarter banger? Do you think it's okay for them not to have a fourth quarter banger? I don't, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was literally shocked. I mean, I would have put money on it that by the beginning of November that there would have been some huge holiday game announced for PlayStation VR. Because let's be honest, PC's always had the hardware. Quest has got all the momentum right now. But the one thing that Sony has always had is the library. The Sony exclusives, more than anything else, is what sells their platforms, not just in VR, but the consoles as well. It's always been about first party exclusives with Sony. And when they announced that the PlayStation 5 would be backwards compatible with PSVR hardware, what that said to me as a PSVR gamer is that they're going to support this platform all the way through the build up to the new console. And I didn't think that there would be any break for VR the way that there is going to be a break for the flat games. So yeah, it shocked me. Now, is it a big mistake? That's debatable. I do think that they've kind of underestimated the threat that Quest is to their ecosystem. But at the end of the day, they're not selling to just Joe and Sally Walmart. They're selling to their 100 million flat gamers that already have bought their PlayStation 4. They're trying to talk these people into buying PSVR headsets. And I guess they feel like that their catalog as it stands now is enough. I wouldn't necessarily agree. It is a bit surprising to me, but I don't think that it's the end of the platform. And I think at this time next year, when PS5 comes out and we start getting exclusives and cross-generation titles, it'll be long since forgotten. But today, yeah, it certainly seems like a problem.
Yeah, let's. I'm going to bounce over to the webinar real quick here, and this is the top 40 most wanted upcoming PlayStation VR games, just to see like what do they have. Okay, so Iron Man February 28th. That's next year. Sniper Elite, we still don't know for sure, but probably first quarter next year. Gorm probably first quarter next year. Now Pistol Whip could still arrive this year. It's still supposed to be fourth quarter. We just don't have an exact game. It's not available on PlayStation VR. For those who didn't know, Pistol Whip isn't there yet, but it's coming. Dreams, a date supposedly got leaked for February 14th. Okay, Undead Citadel, that's next year. Paper Beast is next year. Star Child, that shit might be canceled. We don't even know. Nostos, the PlayStation VR version, is next year. I mean, yeah, you got to scroll down. Shadow Legend VR, by the way, still coming to PlayStation VR. I actually checked with the developers. The sad news is no Quest version of Shadow Legend. That got canceled, but they are coming to PlayStation VR, but it's probably first quarter next year. They've got a lot of stuff coming, man. This Mini Motor Racing X, that might still come this Christmas. And Eclipse Edge of Light just got announced for January for PlayStation VR. And Fuji just got announced to be coming this December. December 10th, actually. Yeah, December 10th. And Mini Motor Racing X by the Binary Mill. We don't have a date on that, but that's still coming in December. Stardust Odyssey is coming on December 3rd. Final Assault might still come out in December or, just before New Year's here. So maybe what Sony's strategy is like, we're just going to let all the third parties handle it. Maybe that was their whole idea there, Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so we've been going for a hell of a long time, and I know you guys want to get going here, but I got one last question for you, and it is a PlayStation VR related question. And let's talk about PlayStation 5 just for a second here. And the question is, going back to what Ruuts had to say about exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games. Okay, now I think this is going to be a weird situation, man. Like, I think this is a hairy situation for Sony. This is a rock and a hard place. No matter what they do, this is not going to be an easy transition. But 1 year from today, like if I look behind me, there's probably going to be a new box that's going to be over there. And it's probably going to say PlayStation 5. And my wallet is probably going to have like somewhere between $400 and $600 less dollars inside it. Okay, so we're going to have these PlayStation 5s under our trees next year, right? Well, or are we? Because you know what? I'm a VR guy. I don't give a damn about flat. Now, Ruuts has already said, don't worry, man. They're going to have some exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games. The only way you're going to be able to play them, you got to buy a PlayStation 5. Wes, do you think that's going to happen next November? There's going to be a certain game, maybe, I don't know, Farpoint VR2? Like, it's weird, man. I don't know how they're going to do this. What do you think is going to happen next November?
Now, I think that it's hard to determine, because I have a hard time believing that if it's really going to be another year, 2 years after the PS5 launch, before we get the next gen PSVR 2, I have a hard time believing that they won't do a refresh on PSVR 1. Kind of the same way that Rift S just kind of upgraded the screens and tracking a little bit. I would think that PSVR would do the same thing. But regardless of that, I think that the transition to PS5 for VR is going to be largely like the transition for flat gamers. You're going to have some games that are cross-generation that play on both PS4 as well as PS5, and then you're also going to have other games that are exclusive to PlayStation 5, and that's all it's going to take is one awesome game, and we're all going to be hooked. Resident Evil 8, Farpoint 2, whatever it may be. As soon as they give us that one awesome game that you have to have that console to play, we're all going to run out and get one. And it's not going to cost $600. I expect it to be around $500. I would be surprised if it's any more than $500. But yeah, I absolutely do think that they will launch with at least one PlayStation VR exclusive.
Okay, well, what about this idea? What if they don't do any PlayStation 5 exclusives because they're going to save those for the real deal with PlayStation VR 2? But what if they did this, okay? What if they said, well, guess what? You buy a PlayStation 5 and wipe out VR is an entirely new experience. Now it is 120 frames. It is perfect resolution. There's no dropped frames. Same thing for Farpoint. Same thing for Blood and Truth. They're going to look way better. I mean, we're dealing with the same PlayStation VR headset, so that isn't going to change. But imagine if you're feeding that PlayStation VR headset maximum resolution that it supports, maximum frame rate that it supports, and maybe you're beefing up the textures more, maybe you're adding even more enemies or something. Maybe they could get some of these developers to go back in and say, okay, we want a PlayStation 5 version of this. We want you to do whatever you possibly can to tap all the power you can out of PlayStation 5 to make this a more enhanced thing. And they could do it for all kinds of games. Like Astrobot. Maybe Astrobot could look way the hell better. High resolution, 120 frames. What's going to happen here, Roots? Is that something they might do?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking will happen. I mean, you were saying, what's the reason to get the PlayStation 5? I'd say it's the same reason why you upgraded to a 1080 Ti. You could say, well, what's the point of upgrading from a 970 until the Rift goes from Rift S to the Rift X or whatever, insert whatever headset in there. Going from the Slim to the Pro was such a huge increase. What's going to happen when I go from the Pro to the 5 and all of those options that I'm afraid to touch for super sampling and all, like you said, maybe they've got the frame rate adjustment or whatever. I would submit that it's going to make the PlayStation 1, even in its current state, it's going to make it look phenomenal compared to even the Pro. So I'll be getting one. I just got a Pro this week. I'll be getting a PlayStation 5 day one, and I'll give my Pro to one of my kids or something. But I want to experience. Well, the same thing when I go onto Reddit and people say, hey, can I run VR on this video card? And they won't preface it like, this is all I got. This is what I want to get, and I'm cheap, and I have money, but I don't want to spend it. And you're like, why the fuck would you want to limit your experience? I want the best video card. I want the highest power. I want super sampling. I want it to look as good as I can. And I think the PlayStation 5 will deliver that. And I still think that they're not going to limit the VR games to the Slim. I mean, think about that. Limiting the games now for developers already is a nightmare. They're trying to develop these games for the Slim, and now you're going to tell them, well, you can develop for the 5, but we still want you to limit it to the Slim. I think they'll have two different versions, if anything, if not just I saw Kevrat.
Yeah, that is a headache, man. That I didn't even think, I forgot about. You're talking about vanilla PlayStation 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you're talking about three platforms, PlayStation Vanilla, Pro, PS5. Yeah, make 3 different games. That's a great one. Oh man, this is a weird pickle that they're in. But okay, wait. One question I have for you, Roots. So you're saying buy it, do it. How much is a PlayStation 5 going to cost? Like if someone put a gun to your head right now and said you have to predict the exact price of PlayStation 5 and we're going to go into the future and check, and if you're wrong, you're freaking dead. What price do you give?
I don't want to die. I go with Wes. I think you're right in the middle. I think it's going to be $500.
Okay, 500 bones. Okay, Wait. Now, here's my question, though. Okay, so here's my question for you. Why don't you take that 500 bones and put it towards the Samsung Infinity headset? It's $1,500, 220 degrees of resolution, 8K in each eye, man. PSVR. You're going to take $500 and throw it at a freaking console thing? Are you crazy, man? What are you doing?
Yeah, I want both, So there's so many exclusives on either one. But yeah, I mean, it's a big chunk of money. But I'm one of those people that believes that A, you get what you pay for, and B, financial things are weird. It's like when you pay for something that's $500, you feel that like that guttural for like a month, and then it just kind of fades away, does it not? You're not thinking about your index anymore, are you?
But this is an expensive hobby, man. This is an expensive hobby. We've got I mean, there's unlimited things to buy. There really is. There's SSDs, there's better video cards, there's deluxe audio straps so you can do a Frankenmod. There's always a Samsung Odyssey somewhere. There's always a Pimax 8K. Dude, you could just spend money non-stop if you really let it happen. And then there's the games. Like, we're lucky we're getting a lot of free games. Dude, these regular people out here, they got to buy hardware and games, man. It's a difficult nut to crack. How are you going to tell all these, like, okay, if you're a PSVR guy and that's all you don't got no PC, you don't got no Quest, yeah, you're probably going PS5 and you're going to ride the Sony wave. But what about these people that have PSVR, but they've also got a Quest, they've also got a Rift S, they like bouncing around all of them, but how do you convince that guy to take 500 of his hard-earned dollars just so he can double his frames and wipe out VR?
Yeah, or maybe or maybe Stormland, like Kevgrat was saying in the, they own that now, so it could come out as a PS5 exclusive game.
Yeah. But he's saying PSVR 2 because now, see, it's a whole, like, we could do a whole nother podcast on the fact that what if the PlayStation VR 1, they said, okay, Sony said, I don't know what the exact quote is, and this is key information right here, but Sony said that the PlayStation VR 1 will work with PlayStation 5. But they didn't say exactly how it's all going to work. But what if somebody, like, let's say next spring, somebody buys the regular PlayStation VR 1. They buy it. It's not on sale. It's not a Black Friday deal. They're paying damn near $300. They're probably getting some, they're getting Star Child with it. Yeah, we wish, right? They're getting Star Child with it, and it's $350 or whatever, and they're getting a bunch of other games. And then the PlayStation 5 comes out, okay? And then the next year, PlayStation VR 2 comes out. Now, isn't this person going to cry freaking bloody murder if Farpoint 2 only works with PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2? And they're like, wait a minute, you told me my PlayStation VR 1 is going to work with PlayStation 5, but now there's Farpoint 2 and it looks beautiful, and there's Astrobot 2, and I can't play them on my busted ass PlayStation VR 1. Do you think they're going to do that? Because if they don't do that, then you know what that means? That means all of PlayStation VR 1's liabilities are also going to be PSVR 2 liabilities. So if PSVR 2 had eye tracking and foveated rendering, they can't use it because it's got to go all the way back to PSVR 1, which doesn't have that. So we're talking about an entirely new weird conundrum. I'm telling you, Sony is in the weirdest position. Okay, Wes, what do you think about that weird hypothetical?
I think that you're overplaying people's reactions. I don't think people are going to be that upset with it. It's not that they've just said that it's going to be backwards compatible for PSVR. It's going to be backwards compatible for all PS4. And for the same reason that people aren't going to complain that there's PS5 exclusives that are flat, they're not going to complain about it in VR either, even though there is this hardware connection in between. Most people are going to be grateful that they have somewhere to go, somewhere to improve their experience. Because if you know how you were when VR was new to you and how I was when it was new to me, I couldn't get enough. I bought my PSVR, my first PSVR, my very first headset was supposed to be a Christmas present. We bought it in October. We decided we'd better try it out to make sure it works in case we need to return it. We tried it in October. It never went back in the box. And by the time December rolled around, I got a PS4 Pro for Christmas because I wanted to make my VR a better experience. And I think for new VR adopters, whether it be PSVR or anything else, they're going to fall in love with it, most of them, the way we all did. And they're going to be happy for the opportunity to improve upon that, even if they can't afford to do so right away.
I really hope that Sony agrees with you and they're not worried about pissing those people off. Like I'm in your camp. Exactly. Exactly. I would push the hardware, leave these people behind, cut the umbilical cord and let it go. Let them fall off the boat, or they got to pay more money to jump back on. Whatever, man. I completely agree with that. I just don't know that Sony's going to agree with that, because they got to look out for the poor guy that buys a PlayStation VR1 next June. He has no idea that his days are numbered. I don't know. Ruuts, any last comments on this idea?
No, I mean, you pretty much run into that with any hardware. It's like you buy something from somewhere, and then the sale hits a month later, and you're like, "Fuck, man, I should have just got it a month later." Same principle here as far as that goes. There's no real perfect timing, and I think you're right. They're in a weird position, probably more weird than a lot of other platforms for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Like, just as somebody, like, we cover news, you guys cover news, it's going to be fascinating to watch them deal with this whole entire thing, because each time we get some information, like when they unveil the PlayStation 5 and when they start talking about things, there's going to be a sentence here or a sentence there that is going to kind of reveal how this thing is going to freaking work, and it's going to be super interesting to hear it all play out. All right, well, this has been a freaking epic episode, if I do say so myself. I'm going to go ahead and bounce over here, because this is the Virtual Strangers YouTube page. And you can see, man, look at all the videos these guys drop. Monday show, they got their Virtual Strangers regular episodes. They do full-on reviews of The Curious Tale of Stolen Pets, The Forest, and stuff like that. And they are just constantly banging at it. I'll tell you what, I listen to all of the regular Virtual Stranger episodes. I listen to the Monday show, and it helps me get through my boring ass work day. And that is beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. So any little last plug that you want to do, Wes, on Virtual Strangers? Why should people come to your channel?
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you're not subscribed already, you want to subscribe now. And the reason being is the very last Monday show of the year, we're doing a special episode. It's going to be 2019 in review. And we all know how epic 2019 has been, the best year in VR history. We're going to take a look back at the year. We're going to select the best games from each genre, from each platform. And we're going to give away some games. We're going to give away a ton of games. Some of them are going to be hidden in the video. You'll find codes throughout, start to finish. Others we're going to drop in the chat, and it's going to be our most epic episode yet, fitting for the most epic year yet in VR. And the only way that you're going to know about it is, other than checking every Monday, is by subscribing now. I assume the link's in the description. If not, just type Virtual Strangers in the search bar there, and you will find us. Now, one more thing before I turn it over to Ruuts. Ruuts, do me a favor. Repeat after me. Mechaleka hi, Mecahiny ho. I'm just playing. Go ahead, Ruuts. That's all I wanted to say.
No, my thing would be just that our thing is we like to discuss the games. We play them, we discuss them, we talk about them. We go into a little bit more depth than a lot of shows out there. A lot of them will gloss over them, but we like to give you a little bit more detail and let you know whether you should buy it or not. So,
yeah, no, man, I love your guys' episodes. I'm telling you, they're straight up lifesavers. I was telling Wes about it because basically the F Reality podcast, like that's going to come up tomorrow, right? Is Saturday. So the F Reality podcast, but I don't watch it or listen to it or anything. I wait. I save it for when I'm back in my hellhole at work. It's going to save me. It's going to get me through a couple of hours. Same thing with your guys' show. Same thing with like Coffee and VR. There's a lot of great, and these are like more podcast style. These are great for people that, you're stuck at work and you're working on some stuff, but you can still enjoy some, you might be listening to an audio book or a Joe Rogan podcast or something like that, but you could also mix some great VR content in as well. And you guys do a bang up job, a lot of content all the time. It's really sweet. All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Anthony.
oh, go ahead. Go
I'm,
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say thanks. It's very kind of you to say. I want to thank you. You've pretty much been the one constant source of support for us since we've got started, and I really appreciate you having me on before. I appreciate you having us on today. It really does make a difference in our traffic, and you've been very kind, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, no problem, man. It's my pleasure, and you guys definitely deserve way more subs. I think you'll get them. Sometimes YouTube is weird, YouTube is weird, but I think this, if you continue to create high quality content, eventually you're gonna get discovered, and you're gonna get a lot more subs, and it's gonna be easier to get review keys and all these other things, and it's a wonderful thing. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And hopefully, maybe we can meet up at like an Oculus Connect 7 or something like that. Or who knows, something would be really cool in the future. But yeah, that's
cool.
Basically going to go ahead and do it for this episode, folks. So thank you for tuning in to VR365. Thanks again to the virtual strangers for coming on the show. Wes and Ruuts, super appreciate it. Had a lot of topics I wanted to discuss with them. Actually didn't get through everything. We have other topics, but we'll have to have them back on another episode. And one last thing I did want to say is I will be on Twitch this Sunday, and might have Gaming Science Teacher joining me, and we're both playing A Fisherman's Tale on the Oculus Quest. So we might go ahead and give our thoughts on A Fisherman's Tale on the Oculus Quest, and probably talk about a lot of Oculus Quest related stuff, like the avalanche of games that are just pouring on the Oculus Quest, games that are still scheduled to come. What are going to be the big games next year? What about sales, prices? What about buying Beat Saber? All of that. We'll be talking about the latest screenshots for Arizona Sunshine. Is it priced too much? Does it look good? These kinds of things. So join us Sunday on Twitch, 11:30 a.m. Gaming Science Teacher, hopefully, if it all works out, she'll be on the show, and that'll be awesome too. And of course, virtual strangers. When do you guys do your normal, your normal show? I know the Monday show's obviously on Monday. But the other weekly show, when does it normally air?
We do a live premiere Sunday evening, normally around 5:30 to 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Pacific is normally when we shoot for. Sometimes we run a little bit late, but Sunday evenings in general is when we have our live premiere of Virtual Strangers.
You know what I think you guys should do? Call the Monday show the Wednesday show. No, just because you're dropping a bomb on Sunday evening, and then you drop another bomb on Monday. Maybe if you split it up a little bit more, 2 separate bombs. That's because what I do here is I do normally it's Thursday, but we had Thanksgiving, but I do a Thursday show and then a Sunday show. So there's kind of a little separation. But you like the double banger like that? The 1-2
Well,
punch?
That was mainly a scheduling based decision when we were putting together, when we went to two guys, we kind of restructured everything to make it easier for us and to make it more fun. So we're covering the games now that we want to play. We're shooting the episodes now when we're available. But now, as I've told you, off air, my schedule is changing. So my work schedule is changing. I'm going to have a lot more free time. So it is possible that there could be some schedule shifts over the next few months. But with that said, Ruuts he's off on the weekends. So most of our shooting is going to be done on the weekends. So we don't like to put too much time in between when we record and when we release, because things can happen. We don't want to seem like we're behind the times. So we don't sit on our videos for very long. But there could be some changes coming up in the near future. But for at least for the time being, we're going to stick with Sunday, Monday, and then reviews, gameplays, these sorts of things fall throughout the week.
Alrighty, well, it works great. I listen to it every week. I'm usually probably a couple of days late, but it's still pretty fresh. You guys are up to date with the latest news when you do it. So I think it works out really good. So definitely everybody go check them out. It's a must-watch TV, baby, on YouTube. All right, well, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. I don't remember what the number is, but I'll see everybody on Sunday at Twitch, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. See you guys then. Have a good one. Take it easy, and later.